Hello.
We're getting really good at it. Welcome to
Are we?
Renegade, a Blackthorn podcast.
That's true.
I'm Julie.
I am Allie.
And we're here to talk to you about a bunch of stuff.
We have a lot to say, which is great because this is a mostly audio medium.
Yeah.
This is also video, theoretically, but I'm pretty sure for real this time. I think we've said that a couple times. That it's theoretically going to be a video, and it hasn't been. And I think we've got it.
I think we got it.
We got it out.
I think we got it.
Maybe not the most professional, but I think we're on our way.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments.
So yeah, we're kicking off July with this main episode. And I think before we get all into that, I just wanted to talk about the fact that we're like 2 months officially into the launch of Renegade, this podcast, and Blackthorn as a whole. And I think it's been really fun. It's also definitely been like a bit of a learning curve and a learning process. And I think part of what we were trying to do when we launched it, when we did, was just be like, okay, let's get this out there. Let's get this idea out there and then kind of see where it goes and like how it forms. Yeah,
there's always like an evolution when you're forming something new.
For sure, because you're like, here's my idea. Is it going to work? I don't know. Let's find out. And let's have everyone watch us.
We've had a lot of practice podcasting, so I feel like
I feel confident about that.
Yeah,
but then we're trying to do a bunch of other stuff. So I guess just a very quick housekeeping like update.
Yeah.
For what we're doing. I think if you had been following along since we launched the Blackthorn and the rebrand and everything we're doing, we talked a little bit about a few different things, but like how the podcast was going to be set up and like extra videos we were going to do. And turns out that was a lot. It was a little bit too much. Yeah. And, we're not taking everything away, but we're just trying to do it on a scale that makes sense for us and keeps us sane, and hopefully is so cool for you guys. So, there will still be videos. This should be a video episode. I assume that camera is recording right now.
Yeah.
Can't know for sure until later, but that's the plan. So these main episodes should also have a video component that will be on our YouTube channel if you guys are interested in that. And then one thing that we were going to do as like a standalone extra video thing is our Blackthorn After Dark series, which hopefully you guys like. We just released the first episode you guys listen to this like a couple weeks ago, so like mid-June. But our idea behind that is like a fun, it's not necessarily the same wine content that you're going to get on the rest of these podcast episodes, but hopefully we hope you still like it. But the idea is like sitting around with your friends, drinking wine in your cozy chair in this like the world that is Blackthorn. So you're like in the speakeasy at the Blackthorn Club or however you want to call it. And you're just sitting around with friends telling stories about things that you think are interesting and weird or cool or just fascinating. And it can kind of be anything. Like we didn't put a lot of parameters on it. I did the first one about something I had heard about, I think maybe initially on TikTok. And I was like, excuse me, what's this? And then did a deep dive. That was the Voynich manuscript, because that one's out, so I don't have to keep that a secret from Julie.
No.
But we are trying to keep it. So we're going to take turns each month telling each other a story. So Julie's will be in July. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. I just want to like drink my wine and find out. But so that is also going to have a video component, but we are going to add that into our podcast rotation as well. So you're going to get the audio version of that as well. And truly, like we really do want to hear your feedback. Like we're excited about a lot of things we're doing, and we have heard a lot of feedback thus far, which is great. And we truly appreciate that. And so let us know what you think of that. It is a little bit of a departure from our like standard wine education content, but I also think part of what we're trying to do here is teach you about wines and talk about cool wines, and also just like integrate wine into everyday life. Like it doesn't have to be its own standalone thing, and like hear the things that we like to do with wine. If we're like sitting around with our friends, like I just want to hear about cool shit personally,
and drink wine
So I think that's the thing that changed the most. That's going to be one of our podcast episodes. There's still going to be a video component. We're keeping our little nightcaps. So you're getting 2 of those a month or so. Basically, however you break it down, you're getting a podcast episode from us every week. Slightly different, but you get an episode every week. And then if you're subscribed to our paid version of the Vault, which is like our newsletter, there's a free version you can sign up for. It gets the passwords. You get extra like little bonus content on the website every month, and just like our general newsletters. Yeah, exactly. And then there's a paid version where you get some even more bonus content and big part of that is our subscriber podcast episodes. So it's like
it's
the
exclusive
new
to
version
our
of Patreon, a Patreon episode. It's like only for the subscribers. We don't put it on a regular feed. And I don't know, that was a lot.
I know.
That makes sense.
I was a little.
That was a lot of housekeeping, but I don't know. I just feel like we
I
need
didn't know
to
what to say. I like you had
keep
everything.
people updated on what's happening.
Let's talk about July, though.
Let's talk about July.
Yeah.
So yes, this is our main episode for July. The theme this month is Chill the Red, Break the Rules, which is just kind of our invitation to you guys to just rebel very gently. But you can like kind of question all the like quote unquote rules in the wine world. So things like red wine is serious, red wine has to be aged, red wine has to be served at a room temperature, a specific temperature, red wine's only for the winter. We want to challenge all of those thoughts. And we think talking about red wine in July is a perfect way to do that.
I know you might think we're crazy, but there's a reason. You'll find out as soon as we start pouring that wine.
That's why. So we'll get into this episode. We are focusing this week on this episode on Sicilian Frappato, which I think is perfectly on that theme of like chill the red, break the rules. I think this is a wine that kind of refuses to play by the rules. It's really, we're gonna get into it in depth, but it's really like light and aromatic. It's definitely best served with a chill. I got a little bit of chill on the bottle here. And beyond the bottle, I think the stories that we're going to have for you, it carries kind of this rebellious spirit. It survived nearly being extinct. Like this grape almost didn't exist.
This is like low key BC stuff here. Like this is like,
it's defied a lot of expectations, and it's kind of found a champion in one of Sicily's most iconic winemakers. And we're going to talk about her later.
Oh, that's cool.
So I guess we should maybe start with some wine.
Yeah, please. I really appreciate that. And in the meantime, can I tell you a random story that's not related to wine, but
always, please.
We
haven't figured this.
We haven't figured this part out. But yeah, my in high school, my best friend's mom, she's like, her name's Kathleen, and she's like my favorite person. And she laughs like Woody Woodpecker. And whenever you got into, it was like, whoa. And so whenever you got into giggles with her, you just end up like falling on the kitchen floor laughing. And one day we got into her house, and she was like, she's like, oh my God, and a big moth flew into her face. And this is where the Frappato thing comes in. She she starts waving her hands in the air and going, frap, 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 frap. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, are you okay? I thought like something stung her.
Yeah.
And it was the evening. It was flying at her, and it was kind of like in her face, and she kept waving her hands around. I didn't know that there was a moth. And she calls them frap bugs. And I thought,
frap bugs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she's like, frap, frap, frap. And I think I died of laughter that night. I was like, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then she got the giggles from it because she realized how ridiculous she was being. So she started laughing like Woody Woodpecker. So it was, and we all just, I don't know. That woman is amazing, but I had to tell you that story because whenever I hear Frappato, I hear her
freaking
going
out about a moth
and yelling frap. And I don't know. That's just, I thought that was funny. And that's for you, Kathy. I love her. She's a wonderful woman.
Well, I'm pretty sure no moths were involved in this.
I don't think so. You never know.
To the best of my knowledge, none of the information I could find out about it. But this is the 2023 COS Frappato. So before Frappato is kind of having a bit of a resurgence. You're already making faces, which you can see because we're on video now. You're watching this on YouTube. Usually those are just for me.
Sorry. Yeah. You guys don't get to see the wonderful quizzical looks that I make on my face.
Before Frappato, it's having like a resurgence. So, but before it was cool, before everyone was talking about chillable reds in general, this winery existed, and they had been making Frappato for years. So this was actually founded in 1980 by three friends, and they are Giambattista Cila, Guisto Acquipinti, Cirino Strano. So COS.
I'm so glad that you had this wine to pronounce because I would have murdered every single one of those names.
There's the time. So they take the COS from their last names, if that wasn't clear by my pronunciation.
Yeah.
But this was basically born from their idea to market honest and expressive wines in southeastern Sicily, which at the time was a region that was way more known for like bulk production than like kind of higher quality wines of nuance. They weren't really trying to make a name for themselves on an international stage. They were just kind of following their instincts and working with what the land gave them, and just kind of refusing to bend to pressure from like the industry status quo at the time, which was just kind of like make cheap bulk wine and get it out the door. The winery itself is located in the Vittoria region, and there's this kind of layer of red clay and like ancient limestone there. So this is like the soil combinations there, but it just really brings out a quality in their wine. It has a lot of like tension and clarity. And it's kind of this foundation that kind of gives their wines this really interesting like freshness and lift, especially because Sicily is such a hot region.
It is. Yeah.
So they need that kind of like mineral edge to it. They have always treated their vineyard like a living thing. So something to be protected, not controlled. One of the co-founders, Giusto Acapinti, has said that the land should be cared for like a family life savings. And that philosophy kind of runs deep. It's kind of, they embrace organic and biodynamic farming long before it was cool. They actually began working biodynamically in 2000, and then they have earned their organic certification as of 2007. And in the cellar, they kind of approach wine really similarly. It's just as restrained. So they do a lot of native yeast. They do a lot of aging in concrete. They bottle with minimal sulfur. There is some sulfur added for preservatives, but they try and keep it as low as possible. And basically, it's just all kind of designed to let the wines speak for itself. They say not the winemaker's ego, which I think is very big of Italian men to say.
That is true.
So the wine we're drinking today, again, this is 2023, so it's very young, current vintage. They're 2023 Frappato. So I haven't actually tasted it yet, but according to their website, it is buoyant and fresh. So kind of like these red berry notes, things like strawberries, but you're also going to get an herbal quality to it. Maybe some floral notes like rose petal or tea leaf. And then they say that it has a gentle mineral snap.
It does, actually.
So light-bodied, but still complex and precise. There is going to be some like delicate tannins on it, so like a little bit of structure, but I think it should be a very like sippable, chillable, late afternoon summer red.
And the bottle's cool.
The bottle is cool. It's like a little squatty.
I'm going to say this right now. It is a little too cold. Because I wasn't getting a lot of flavor. Now I am, but I made the face because it's that old world. It's not funky, but it's like
Italian.
It tastes like Italian. I don't know how to articulate that any better, but the minerality is there. I get like a red brick kind of vibe. Like literally, like, I know that sounds crazy, but whatever. I'm getting a lot more fruit now that it's warming up a little bit. Super easy, really clean, nice and dry. So like, I think this would be really fun on like a picnic or something. Like, you chill it up, you throw it in the bag with everything else, and then you sit and have like your Italian meat sandwiches, or like you could have this with almost anything. We might have it with jambalaya later. We'll see how that goes.
No, I think this is really nice. It almost has like, I think a lot of those Italian wines like Sangiovese and all that have like the tomato leafy quality. I think I get like a little bit of that. It's like that like herbal but still kind of almost spicy.
Frappato is actually kind of low-key related to Sangiovese, so
well, there you go.
Well, I guess that's my portion. That's all the information you're gonna get about.
Yeah. So this is the COS Frappato. This is definitely, I think they're not a super large producer, but they're one of the more famous producers out of especially this like part of Sicily. This
if you look up like Frappato, Sicilian Frappato, this is one of the first ones that comes up.
Totally.
It's one of like the top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will get later in this episode, I will have a story of a different winemaker, but that is closely related to this winery. And I just think it's very fitting. Like, I agree, this was a little bit too cold, but it's warm. It's even just like sitting in the glass now, it warms up a little bit.
It's great. It's really fun.
Generally, just like, if you guys are curious, if you're chilling reds, the rule of thumb is like, put it in the fridge maybe like 15 minutes before you want to drink it.
Yeah.
I just didn't time it very well because I was like in the fridge and then I had to drive here, and then
we are in our studio. Our studio is not where either of us live. So
anyway, Julie, what can you tell us about Frappato?
Frappato is thin-skinned. It's really delicate. Like the way I found some comparisons online is that if you want perspective, and I like giving opposite perspective, is that it's kind of the antithesis of Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cab, for example, thrives in like a lot of different climates and terroirs. It's got big, juicy bunches of fruit. And it'll kind of go wild if unchecked, where Frappato, in contrast, it's like really fussy. It's very specific. It requires like a dry, warm conditions that come very easily to the growers of Sicily, because it is a dry and warm climate.
That's true.
So it's not prone to any kind of diseases that are kind of part of wetter climates. So it's very like fussy is the word that I read a lot. Kind of like difficult was another one.
Yeah. It's a high maintenance grape.
So the main problem with Frappato, and why people may not have wanted to grow it as much, is that its yield is really low. So you're gonna not get a lot of fruit. It's less wine. It doesn't make it more expensive necessarily. They can plant more or plant denser, but you don't really want to do that. So the Sicilian farmers are planting something that isn't really giving them a ton of juice per
and
vine.
I think nowadays, like we've talked before on this podcast, that like lower yield actually typically means better fruit. So like a lot of winemakers actually really prefer that when their focus is quality. But I think for a long time, especially in the history of Sicily, they have a lot of history of like economic instability, that like you needed the money and you needed the quantity to make the money. And if you're focused on like bulk wine production, you're not going to bulk produce something that is A, fussy, and B, low yielding. Yeah,
so it's one of the reasons why there's probably like not a lot more Frappato in the world.
Economic, didn't really spread very far.
One of my favorite things I found was like economics must sometimes trump sentiment, which is kind of exactly what you just said. But it has admirers, and it's steeped in tradition. So there's a lot of loyalty with this variety, and it's kind of becoming more on the global stage now. So long time ago, you might not have found this anywhere outside of Italy.
Or heard about it,
yeah.
I had to go to 2 wine shops to find this. The first one I went to goes, we sold out over the weekend. And I was like, what?
How did that even happen? Maybe we're just hitting the nail on the head. Like maybe you're just like really like in
really
tune
on
with the, So, if the winemaker kind of picks healthy bunches and handles Frappato carefully in the winery, then it becomes this really beautiful, delicate, and perfumed wine. And the best analogy would be Sicily's answer to Beaujolais.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it's kind of really ethereal. It's like light in color. You can see on the camera if you're watching. But it has a nice little grip, kind of like Sangiovese, which you mentioned earlier. But the flavor profile doesn't have, I can't be like, it tastes like X. It does taste like Italian. Yeah. It tastes like Italy.
Yeah.
But that's something that a lot of Italian wines share. But I don't have like a really good comparison. The only reason why the Beaujolais comparison is made is because it's a light, fruity, easy drinking, fresh wine that would be akin to that style.
Yeah.
But that's flavor wise, they don't taste alike.
No.
So it's usually like pretty high in acid, which I think this one is too, but in a really good way. It's very well integrated. So some producers kind of experiment with some French oak and see if they can like temper some of its like really like dry minerality and make it more rounded, but it generally doesn't benefit from aging. So that's one of the things, is like that thing you mentioned earlier, with it being something that you're supposed to like bottle and drink like it's a 2023, you know.
And I think this was just concrete, and like I can't really imagine oak on this wine. And I actually think this has a nice roundness to it. Like it has a lot of minerality, it has a lot of acid. It's definitely like very dry on the finish. But it's not, I don't think of this as like overly like angular or like too palate, quote unquote, like weird. I think this is actually like quite well rounded. Like it's got a lot of fruit.
Like even if you're not super into wine, but you know that you like maybe like a chillable red, or you want to try something new, this isn't crazy outside the box.
No, I don't think this is like, I'm also struggling to find another wine that like it compares to. I stand by the Sangiovese, but I don't think it tastes like every.
Yeah.
It's like a lighter version and like a different version. But I don't think this tastes so out of the box or like. different that it's going to be unapproachable if you've never tried it before.
Yeah, and its DNA broken down makes it kind of a distant relative to Sangiovese, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But it's not like a clone or it's not its parent
It's not
necessarily
actually related, but
it's like
very distantly.
Exactly. So
your weird cousin.
Yeah. I probably am the weird cousin, actually. So in its youth, it's really has a lot of strawberries and cherries, notes of like violets and lavender. Flower characteristics are a lot of the things that I've read mostly about. But they, with a little bit of age, it does evolve into like white pepper, cloves. I think that's like the tea you're kind of talking about, those like spices that come out, sometimes with a little bit of like dried tobacco. But it's really ready to drink upon release. But it can age for 5 to 10 years really easily. So if you decided to buy 2 and hold on to one, you wouldn't be like, oh crap, I need to drink it like in a year.
Right.
You can. It has
no. It tastes like it has enough going on.
It has enough tannins, has enough acid to kind of like keep up. So Frappato is kind of blended sometimes nowadays with other varieties, most commonly the Nero d'Avola grape. But nevertheless, like seeing wineries releasing single varietal interpretations of it have been really encouraging. So, for example, the Ariana Acapinti, is that who you're going to talk about? I didn't actually know that. I just was writing things down. And then Donna Fugata and Planeta make excellent versions. They're really fresh, fragrant, ripe acidity, good tannins, and I think all those things can really describe what we're currently drinking, which is cool. I'm gonna skip this last part.
You can say
it. Okay. So traditionally it's aged in wood barrels before release. Acapinti pioneered maturation in ceramic amphora. This contributes to distinctive like saline quality to the wines, and it adds kind of an extra dimension of this already like really, delicious wine, really. So Frappato blends can be equally enjoyable. I can see how you could balance this out with something a little bit bolder, especially when it's with Nero d'Avola. They really kind of balance each other out, and make
which
each
is typically like a little bit of a heavier red. Yeah.
So basically, it does kind of subdue that perfumey quality that I was mentioning earlier.
Right.
But it's give and take, but I think what I've been reading about the blends together is that they're a little bit more approachable, but also like give it a little bit more like, I don't know, I want to say like size, like generosity, I think is the word I'm looking for. It's a dumb way to describe it, but that's what I'm going to do. I did not write that down. So its center is in Cerasuolo di Vittoria, which and it's wine growing tradition stretched back to the 3rd century BC. I mentioned the BC a little bit earlier. So this area has been the sole recipient of DOCG status in Sicily. So there's no other DOCG.
And that just, we don't need to get into.
No.
Just to clarify though, that's just like classifications in Italian wine. So DOCG is like the highest level of like an area to be classified, and then there's like DOC, and then there's
IGT. So it got promoted from DOC in 2005, but it's like a really big area stretching from the hilltop city of Ragusa to Raisi in the west. So it's over 70 square kilometers.
Okay, so it's big.
Didn't translate into miles, but you're welcome. I didn't bother. But the land is that's planted under vine. We mentioned earlier the type of soil. So there's like a lot of calcareous soil. There's some clay concentrations. The limestone, which you mentioned earlier, can really change the like acidity in the wine. And they really have very reliable, dry, hot weather in the summer. And that's what this grape really needs to grow. And if that did change, they wouldn't survive on the vine. The already low yields would be bad. So right now everything's good. No doom and gloom on this pod today. So according to the rules, winemakers can craft 50-50 blends of Nero d'Avola and Frappato, although the regulations allow the former to dominate up to 70%. And they're aged for at least 18 months before release for quality. There's like a Classico designation, kind of like Sangiovese. And they can be really structured, really tannic, and they can age for 15 to 20 years. So this is like different styles of these things, and making the wine more robust.
Right.
Kind of adds to ageability, but also adds to a lot of things like tannin.
Yeah.
So the Vittoria DOC and the newer IGT tier Siciliane.
Yeah. Siciliana.
Oh, there we go. Designation. So it allows for a single varietal production, which we mentioned earlier that it's becoming more and more like common, even though it's more expensive. And I think that's just like a change in the industry itself. And then let's see here.
This is labeled IG.
So I think, and I agree with this statement, it really represents everything wonderful about Italian wine. So a lot of international varieties continue to kind of be planted in places like Tuscany, Puglia, and Piedmont. But Sicily is really proud of their indigenous grapes, and they've really defended even this very difficult and fussy as it was grape. So it was really once very dismissed. It was kind of like, meh, like who cares about that? The crazy Sicilians are growing this thing.
Right.
And now it's really kind of becoming it's a time-honored tradition, but it's also being recognized more by the larger Italian wine world, which is really cool. So a lot of the flavors and aromas I mentioned earlier, like wild strawberries, raspberries, violets, lavender, rose petals, that herbal quality that we're talking about, definitely that crisp acidity, lots of earthy minerality. Like I said, that red brick tone that I like really kind of feel with it is super interesting. So kind of why not take a little chance on our new little friend and have their charms kind of work its little magic. So the grape is really an original, and it doesn't come often, doesn't happen that often. Yeah. But I couldn't do this pod or this portion of the pod without talking about food.
Always talking about food for Italian
wine. I love a food and wine pairing, but honestly, this is really great by itself. It's super fun. Yeah. I did mention kind of going on a picnic earlier, but as you would expect, food is of the utmost importance to Sicilians. Local cuisine is robust and hearty, and is understandably has an emphasis on seafood. All right, it's got a lot of seasonality to it, but fresh arancini are regionally a speciality. Polpette di Cavallo is another favorite. It's Cavallo.
They don't do the.
Oh, sorry, it's not Spanish.
It's not pollo. It's polo.
My bad.
It's hard. It was hard for me. I was
but it sounds horrible, but it's horse meat meatballs prepared with egg. Now, if you visited France and Italy and some other places, horse meat is common and not weird for people to eat. It tastes good. Sorry, people.
I've never tried it.
They had a lot at the market when I lived in the south of France. So Frappato is very like vibrant acidity and intense aromatics cut across a lot of these intensely flavored dishes.
Yeah, but imagine, I mean, seafood heavy, but then also like everything you named, like arancini, like meatballs, that seems very like rich, hearty, like countryside food. Yeah. And so you feel like you want something that's like a little bit leaner to cut through the like richness of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what grows together goes together. That's something we talk about a lot about. But don't stress on food and wine pairing. I've kind of come across these questions a lot recently. It's fun to make educated guesses. And it's fun to kind of like gain a little bit of knowledge and see if you can apply it. But don't stress. Wine's good on its own. It's good with food. But if you're going to try to experiment, having some actual Italian food would be a nice way to start.
I think so.
So okay. I need wine first. I'm sorry. I need Masvino. This bottle is also very cool. Thank you. I don't have to talk anymore. So, well, a little bit, I guess.
You can weigh in.
Am I allowed to? Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'd appreciate it.
There are two of us on this podcast.
Okay. But I am going to talk about Arianna Acquapinti and kind of her role in the resurrection of Sicilian Frappato. So you've covered a lot, but basically after World War II, a lot of the vineyard land in Sicily was kind of left behind because of economic struggles and just because of mass migration that kind of pulled people away from farming in general. And grapes like Frappato, in addition to being kind of tricky to grow and then low yielding, also just kind of didn't fit the like big, bold movement that like wine was having right then. Like it didn't fit into this like stereotypical Italian, Southern Italian, like red wine. And so it just kind of got forgotten and was like pushed to the sidelines in favor of more like quote unquote serious reds. But then a new generation came along, and in the early 2000s, a few winemakers, most notably Arianna Acapinti, who is the niece of the co-founder of COS.
I was wondering if it was like the daughter or like
she's
the
niece,
wife.
so that's her uncle.
Okay.
Saw something that others didn't, and she kind of began treating Frappato not as an afterthought, but as the heart of a new Sicilian identity, something worth reviving, something worth fighting for. So Frappato's story in general at its core is like a quiet rebellion. It's kind of about resisting sameness and about honoring the past without being bound by it. So as Arianna once said, quote, "I want to make wines that smell of my land, of the sun, the wind, and the Vittoria countryside." So her Frappato for her isn't just a wine, it's a statement. It's a pride of place that was kind of once overlooked. So her journey started really young. She was 16 when her uncle brought her to Vin Italy, which is this massive wine expo in Verona. And while she was there, something just kind of clicked. She didn't just fall in love with wine. She fell for like the people, the culture, the connection. She went on to study at the University of Milan School of Viticulture and Enology. And by the time she was 22, she had made her first vintage. And
that's impressive.
So it all began with a single plot of bush vines that she was able to purchase in Contrada Fosso di Lupo. So it was 1 hectare. That was it. But that by 2009, so that was in 2009, after returning to her hometown in Vittoria, she started farming it using biodynamic practices from the start, before most people even really knew what that meant. So obviously, I think she had a lot of help from her uncle. The COS winery had started doing biodynamic as of 2000. This is in 2009. But in general, it was still relatively a new concept. So that meant no chemicals, no shortcuts, just intuition and intention, and like kind of just a deep respect for the land. Since then, her 1 hectare has grown to 10. Her winery now produces over 120,000 bottles a year. I didn't do the math on that. Every European winery always says that, like when we talk about case production in the US, it's always like, oh, we make, 3,000 cases, or we make 40,000 cases.
It's 120,000 bottles. So divided by 12.
If you're doing 12. I think the reason they don't do it is like because people have different case sizes.
True.
But she now produces that a year, all with the same philosophy that she started with, which is basically like low intervention, deeply human, and rooted in place. And she doesn't actually love labels in general in terms of what she's doing with their wines. So she does follow biodynamic practices, but she doesn't market her wines as like natural or, God forbid, clean, or anything trendy. She likes to actually call them human wines. And that means...
Made of humans?
Yes. You're welcome. I didn't actually get one of her.
I was listening to a podcast on zombies today. That's probably just in my head.
Okay.
Sorry.
But that means she does use indigenous yeast. She doesn't use irrigation. She doesn't do chemicals. She doesn't use new oak. She doesn't do any kind of filtration. Instead, she uses cover crops like beans and oats in the vineyard. She hand picks and hand selects her grape clusters, and then she ages most of her wine in cement. And according to her, her philosophy is built on 2 values, which is respect for biodiversity and the vineyard, and acceptance of the land through gestures that are sensitive, natural, and wise, because wine is alive. So for her, like the reason she's doing organic farming isn't just purely like this is good for the planet. She thinks it makes the wines better. She believes that the elegance and freshness of her wines come from the subsoil, and that vines that have been fed only from the topsoil, like especially when grown chemically, end up producing wines that taste really hot and kind of cooked, especially in climates like Sicily. But her wines are like a little bit leaner. They're like really full of energy, a lot of minerality, a lot of vitality, because they're older vines, and also because of her practices. Like they force the roots to grow deeper. Like it's more work, but it's actually making better.
Well, and she's reinvigorating her soil over time as well, and there's nothing killing like the things that are being tilled back into the earth. So that makes a lot of sense.
So she focuses mostly on red grapes, so Frappato and Nero d'Avola. But she also works with a few native Sicilian whites. So those are Moscato di Alessandria, which is an ancient aromatic variety that a lot of people claim is indigenous to Sicily, and there's no like definitive proof. Some people think it came from Egypt because of the name. And then also a grape called Albanello, which is a nearly extinct white grape that Ariana, along with a few others, have since kind of brought back. They've planted like whole vineyards of Albinello and kind of pulled it back from the edge of disappearance. So her and a handful of other winemakers have kind of like kept this grape.
Are there
alive.
any like what is it like?
I couldn't find a ton about what it was like.
I've never heard of it. There are a lot of I
would love to try it.
For those of you listening or watching, like there's so many grape varieties. I have that like elemental chart of grape varieties that you can find. It looks kind of fun. It's like a big poster. And when I was first coming up, I was like, oh, that's a lot of varieties, not knowing that like them, that's not even the tip of the iceberg.
Especially in a place like Italy where there's like so many like native varieties, and like some of them have disappeared, but some people are like, oh, there's still like half a hectare of that over there, that guy's growing it, keeping it alive. Like that maybe is it, but it still exists.
That's cool.
Okay, so I thought that was cool about Albinello. I don't know much about it, but I would like to try it. But we are here to talk about Frappato, and Ariana kind of believes that this really light, vibrant red could stand on its own, and she was right. So where others kind of saw it as like a forgettable blending grape, maybe she saw possibility. And I think, like you were saying, like when you talk about the DOCG rules, again, I don't want to get too into it because there's like so many laws and like an Italian classification system, but it's like partly a regional designation, like we have our ABA system, and then it's partly like quality rules and things like that, and along with that there's like regulations as to how you can make your wine to be able to put that on your label. So it's not just like, did you get fruit from this area? It's like, did you make this according to our standards? And you cannot have 100% Frappato and have a DOCG designation on your label.
It has to have
It has to be blended. But she was like, she really thinks this can stand on her own, and she was right. And so she wasn't just going to use it as a blending grape, and in kind of championing it, she in turn kind of became this like natural wine icon. She's like pretty famous. She does make red blends, so Frappato and Nero d'Avola together, but her flagship wine is simply called Il Frappato, and it's essentially, she considers it her manifesto in a bottle. It's really delicate and lifted, but it's also kind of structural and earthy. And it just shows everything that Frappato can be when someone cares enough to let it shine. She also recently launched this really cool line that I would love to try. It's called Vini di Contrada, and it's single parcel Frappato wines that her intention is so that they can show how soil alone shapes flavor. So she has sandy plots that she gets grapes from, and the wines are softer and more fruit driven. And then she has more limestone rich vineyards, and those produce more structured and serious wines. So in this line, she produces 3 bottles total, and 1 is fruit only from sandy vineyards, 1 is fruit only from limestone vineyards, and the last one is like a blend of the two. All Frappato.
I want all of them.
Yeah, I want to taste them all side by side.
I mean, so in wine in general, like here, like we refer to them as usually blocks. They're designated areas that have distinct terroir on a certain vineyard, and you plant certain things that are good in those soils, so it has like designation. You're like, I know that block 7 is amazing, and this all comes from so it's in that same vein of like it's a common practice, but I think it's cool that she's doing it with something that's like very uncommon,
and then just like doing it so purposely to be like, here are the bottlings that are just like, here's a whole line that's like kind of this like cool experiment.
Where do we find them?
I don't know.
Let's email her.
Okay, just a little bit more about her. Wine actually isn't the only thing she grows. So she's building something closer to like a self-sustaining farm. So she presses olives. She harvests wild capers in the Hybline? Hybline?
I don't know.
Mountains. She's planted orange and pear orchards, and she's even growing something called Tumenia, which is an ancient Sicilian wheat. And in collaboration with a local chef, she's like using it to make her own line of dried pasta.
That is so cool.
That's what she's doing.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm not doing enough, I don't think. What do you think?
We couldn't even do like videos and so she is often credited, if you read about Frappato, with kind of bringing Frappato back from obscurity. But she's kind of done more than that. She's also become a symbol of staying home when everyone else leaves, because Sicily has seen so many of its young people, and I think actually a good chunk of Italy in general has this problem, but I think Sicily experienced it a lot, where like a lot of the young people were leaving for like better economic opportunities elsewhere. They're leaving their like smaller, more rural communities. And you know, obviously you got to do what you got to do. Makes sense. But she returned home after she had studied, and she kind of proved it was possible to do something meaningful and world shifting work from right where you are. She says, quote, "I want to show young people the importance of tradition and the beauty of being attached to a sense of place." And that's kind of what her wine is supposed to do. It kind of holds you in place. It reminds you of like sunshine and red soil and sea breeze and quiet rebellion. And so I think she didn't just like revive Frappato. She kind of redefined what red wine could be. And I think Frappato is really cool in that respect in general. She also very much doesn't chase, like kind of became somewhat iconic and famous, but she doesn't really chase like power or points. She's really like leading with like a bit more delicacy. She's leading into the terroir, into just like the truth of like the land. And in doing so, she kind of created a wine that refuses to conform a bit. So I think Frappato is kind of like the ultimate chill the red, break the rules wine. And it reminds us that rebellion doesn't have to be loud. It can kind of be quiet and intentional and delicious, hopefully. Because for her story, like breaking the rules doesn't necessarily mean chaos. It means more clarity. It means authenticity. It means returning to something that's a little bit more honest. And that's kind of the whole point of this month themes, is like you don't need permission, but if you're waiting for it, this is your sign.
Oh, I like that. Oh, signs. All right, Allie Grant. Signs. I drank all. There's enough for a cheers. Okay, cheers. I'm not going to get cursed any more than I already am. All right.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
That was loud. And yet far away from the microphone, so I don't know.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
All right.